Have you ever wondered what one of the greatest differences between a professional sounding studio and an amateur sounding studio is, or how they function and how that could be different? Well, today we're going to break down a couple different ways that could differentiate between just a home studio doing amateur work and somebody who is getting a ton of work done, getting a lot of music out to the world, and it may be the environment that surrounds them. Let's have a think on that. Hey everybody, welcome to today's episode, and today is a pretty good one that I kind of wish that I had when I was a bit younger, when I was putting together one of the many recording and practice spaces I put together over a lifetime of doing music. And today we're going to share some of those great ideas so that you, when you get to that stage, when you're ready to really set up the perfect space for you to get work done, will have all that ready to go. So, just before we get started, I want to thank everybody who's been subscribing and giving us all the likes. All those things have been so helpful. Please continue. If you haven't subscribed yet, please just click that button really quick. Helps us out a ton. And thanks for watching all the episodes. This is just a huge thank you to everybody. Moving on, let's go right into the first step here. So I've got some real quick breakdowns of what you can do to utilize the space that you have, no matter how big, no matter how small, no matter what gear you have. This is not gear dependent. You don't have to have a certain list of this, that, or the other, or else it doesn't work. You can have the right space and the right environment, and you can create much better music than somebody that just has, $10,000 worth of gear, $100,000 worth of gear. That doesn't matter. Having the right environment to create and to be ready to go when the moment strikes and you need to be ready to record or capture a moment, that's what really makes a difference between somebody who's putting out a lot of great stuff and people that are just getting by or haven't quite figured out what's right with them. So the first thing we'll talk about here is I want to talk about dedicated zones. And if you have the space, of course, it's very, very dependent on everybody. But even if you don't, even if it's just a bedroom, it's nice to have different sections to do different work in. And I highly recommend this. And this is what I had to learn hard myself, just because I am one of those people that will sit at my desk and everything's set up really great where I can just grab a bass or I can grab a guitar or I can grab whatever I need to create that next song or put the certain parts together, whatever it is. But the best recordings I've been able to do, the best things I've been able to add or do session work with is when you're able to step to the side or you have a dedicated area where you just can go and start recording, and that area is just, of course, standing is a huge thing. Standing versus sitting, you get better performances, especially if it has anything to do with breath control, like vocals and that kind of thing. All those kind of things make a big difference as to the sound of the performance. So you want that to translate, you want that to come across. So having a dedicated space versus where you record and mix and master versus where you're going to do your record, actual physical recording, have that just a bit apart if you can. Also, if you can have a separate section of wherever your workspace is, your studio, your home, your basement, wherever it is, where you can do your songwriting and your practice. Those two areas can share the same area, but having those two together and a separate area from both of those is a great way to differentiate in your mind. Hey, I'm here to do this. A lot of times when I'm there to get some recording done and maybe do a little bit of practice, then I will also get sidetracked by doing other things because I know there's work in front of me. The computer's right there. I can knock out a couple, edits that I know I need to get out of the way, whatever it may be. All that stuff's right in front of me. But having a separate area where I can go sit, do my practice, focus on those kind of things, it really helps. So dedicated zones is a great way to make the most out of your studio / recording / practice area. Make sure that you have those, and it'll make a big difference. The next one is a tech setup. So as we're talking about having that area ready to go, being ready to capture those moments when the time comes, having your tech set up and ready to go, whatever your setup at this moment is, it doesn't matter. Just be ready, whatever is most cost efficient and energy efficient. Have it ready to go at a moment's notice. Couple episodes back, we were talking about building right over here where our ultimate live rig. If you haven't seen that one, go check it out. But we have a power unit there that has the flip switches on it, which is just fantastic. I have the same thing for my studio desk, where I can just come in the morning. I know exactly, just flip these two switches, hit this one, and this front one here hits my lights. It gets all my recording interfaces get turned on, studio monitors get turned on, and I know in that moment I can take the dogs out for a quick walk and a quick poo, bring them back in, and I'm ready to go. I can start recording. I can start practice. I can do whatever it is that the morning requires of me. It's instantly ready to go. And I am one of those people that leaves the computer going probably more than I should, just because I know how long it takes for it to boot up. And I'm always worried about that next update that might not jive with whatever software I have going. And there's, always that lifelong fear that we have now. But you don't have to do that exact same thing. I recommend you probably shouldn't do that. But just having things set up and ready to go at a moment's notice, it takes the barriers away, and it stops you from having a reason not to do it, or to, I'll get to it later when I have the time. The time is now. There's no reason not to do it because it's ready to go. That's a huge way. That's a huge difference between anybody that's, does this for a living, or music is their life, or what they're trying to accomplish, versus, I'll get to it when I can. I just don't have the time. They have so many barriers in the way. Just knock those out. The next one I want to talk about is soundproofing. And this one's not super important. Of course, one of our best videos we've ever done was all about how soundproofing is really not as important as everybody likes to tell you it is. We still stand by that, but of course, the thing, and I've said it many times afterwards, that with soundproofing is it's not so much that it's not worth it, because it is, but it's a big investment. It's a time investment. It's a knowledge investment where you have to learn something, invest in your time to learn it, and why these reflections, and where it needs to go where to stop this from happening. But if you can get it, if you can afford it, and you take the time to do it, it's less work on the back end of having to make your recordings usable, take out the background sound that you didn't want in there. All those kind of things that take time and effort in the editing stages are now completely gone. And it's just one less barrier out of the way, like we're talking about here. So it is worth your time and investment to do it, but it just has to be at the right stage in your career. And it really shouldn't be every list you go to of how to set up a recording space. It really doesn't have to be there first and foremost. And we'll show you why. We'll link that right now and in the show notes of how you can deal with no soundproofing and using software to do noise cancellation in the background, clean up all your tracks. That'll get you through for quite a while. So there's always that. But if you have it, make sure that you can get all those reflection points. If there's walls on either side of you, find a way to dampen it. If you can afford to put a cloud above your mixing and mastering station, or wherever you're doing your recording and your editing, that makes a huge difference. Technique that I like to use, and a lot of people don't use this because it's not aesthetically pleasing, but my recording desk, which I built and put together, I have it at an angle with my walls, just because I know that it breaks up those sound reflections, and those first reflection points are not as intense. And of course, then you take time when you have a set spot to learn your speakers, run through them, make sure you make the adjustments of where the height is and the different parameters that are in that. You just go through it. You make sure you set everything up correctly. So soundproofing is a huge, huge thing when you can afford it and when the time is right. Another thing when we're talking about our personal workspaces, and now we're getting into a little bit of the touchy-feely, but really something that I think makes a huge, huge difference, and that is the inspirational and the personal touches. You should have as much as you can, and much as means to you, things around you that remind you of, steps you've taken, how far you've come, things you've accomplished, all those little bits and pieces, those bits and bobs, those little reminders, those knickknacks can be around you. And they're really helpful to show you not only how far you've come, but where you're trying to get. Of course, you can have inspirational posters or sayings or plaques. Those are great if they really hit you and resonate. Yes, by all means, have those around. They're fantastic. Any signage or light up things. I love having like neon signs around me. I have one that I have a fascination with eagles for some reason, no real reason, but I have a couple light up signs that do that. And just to me, they remind me that I'm in a working space and I'm in that right area. They give me that vibe and that feeling of, yes, I'm here to create. Yes, this is a workplace. Let's get work done. Also have, CDs and albums on the wall, which I've accomplished and produced and worked with and done engineering for other artists. that have done well and that have been happy. They give you the thank you notes, and they'll send you the album, and thank you for your time, and all those kind of things. I'd love to keep those reminders around, just to show that you've done things and remind you that you've helped other people accomplish their dreams or get moving in their directions. And those are always great reminders of things get done, and help you, to inspire you to keep going forward and doing this. So those kind of things are huge. Personal touches are a big must for your area to get the most productivity and keep your mindset right and moving forward. Now, this might seem like it's a quick video, but this is the very last one I want to talk about. And I want to talk about the feng shui of your studio, of your recording area, of your workspace for your music. And the thing about this is that I'm not going to go deep into the actual Chinese, the real meaning behind of how feng shui works and all that. I'm just stealing the term because the idea, but just making sure that the area that you work in, to get the most out of it, is set up as best as it can. And this is talking about the things that you would never think about that really do make a difference. And the first one we'll talk about is, again, removing all resistance. So in your room, you need to look around and take an inventory of what's there, what needs to be there, and what doesn't need to be there. I guarantee you, if you have music gear and you've been doing this any length of time, you're going to have things around that you like, that maybe you don't use a ton, but they look cool, or they kind of definitely give the vibe up that this is who I am. I'm all about recording. I'm all about a guitar playing. I'm all about, my music and my songwriting and my playing piano, whatever it is. There's going to be items around that maybe don't function or get used a lot, but are there more just for a look that you're trying to, give that look, that vibe off to other people. But maybe it's not so important, and they could be taken out, and they're just taking up space. The other one is, you want to make sure and really think about the flow and the movement through the area that you have. Is it easy for you to get to, like we talked about those zones, very first thing? Is it easy for you to switch from one to the other? Is there anything in the way? Is there obstacles? Do you have to climb over things? Anything that you can remove and make those switches easier, the more you're going to get done, the less you're going to put those mental blocks in your way and find reasons not to do things. You're just going to be switching back and forth, and just because it's there and it's easy, you're going to do it. The next one the other one I just want to talk about on that, the last one with removing resistance. And we did a whole episode about making sure your file systems were in order, and we gave you a nice handout how to set everything out. This is one of those things where you want to make sure everything that you're recording into, you're not worrying about which files are going where, how do I set this up. Everything should just be ready to go. Your filing system should be all set up. And no, it seems just extra work to do and more to think about, but it's really a big step if you don't have to think about it. If it's already set up, you can accomplish so much more just because it's already done. You don't have to think about it. Get the recordings. You can go back and grab them. You know right where they are when you need to access them. One we just talked about with my desk here is just your desk placement. Make sure that wherever it is in your room, if you're using whatever you're using to put things on and be able to sit at and do work, we're calling your desk. Make sure it's at a point in the room that it is, central to what you're doing. But also think of other things. Is it in the most optimal space? Is it in the way? Is it hindering what I'm doing? All those kind of things. How easily can I access this thing? All those kind of things. Where your desk is sitting is very important. Of course, consider into that, as we're talking about, mostly just the feeling of the room. When you see this desk, does it make you feel like you want to get something done? Or when you look at it, you step into your room, your studio, your office, does it make you feel dread just because it feels claustrophobic, or is there something about it? If that's the case, move it somewhere else. Try a different area till I get that feeling of when you walk in the room, there's my desk, there's my workstation, let's get this done. I'm going to sit down and get to work. Again, we talked about clearing pathways. That's a huge one, making sure all your paths out of the ground, everything around you is clear. The studio that I'm in right now is a horrible example of that, just because we've been doing so much gear review and putting stuff together. We have things all over the spot, but still, I can have clients come in and the ground is clear, the area is clear, we're able to walk around, get work done. All our zones are ready and set up and easily accessible. But make sure as much clutter is removed as can be, just because the more that's there, the more that you feel like you're being overwhelmed, or there's additional things you need to deal with cleaning up, the less that your mind wants to get to that point to make music, to create things, to get to work. Another huge one that really gets underlooked is proper lighting. And you just have to be honest with yourself. You have to know yourself well enough to know how much lighting you need. Do you need mood lighting? Do you need, neon lights? Do you need black lights? Personally, if we're sharing what I have to have natural light. I love natural light, and that comes with its own uh, problems in its own. Just because if you're introducing natural light, you're introducing windows, you're introducing things that are letting in a little bit of sound. You're going to have to compensate for that. You're going to have to know how to work around that with mic placement. And again, uh, removing software, all those kind of things. You're going to have to understand how to use those and utilize the best space you have as the equipment, as one of your tools. So understand that knowing what you need for natural lighting can introduce noise. Overhead lights that are uh, you can buzz, they can add sound. You just have to be aware of what's going on. But proper lighting super important. The next thing, of course, is just finding what we all think of when we say the word feng shui, the term feng shui, is just finding that balance. And you need to find the balance and harmony in your workspace. You need to figure out how all the items you have there are adding to the overall feeling of what's getting done and the overall drive for you to accomplish something. And is it really just radiating, this is me getting work done? Just behind me, we have a ton of things hanging on the wall, and some of them get used more than others, but it still gives me that feeling of when I walk in the studio, I know I can go grab whatever I need because it gives me that feeling. I feel comfortable because I know these are the tools that I can accomplish any sound that I really need to in the genres that I'm working with or with the clients that I'm working with. Uh, all those kind of things, they're in perfect balance. They are where they are for a reason, and that's just working over time to figure out what works best for me and my workflow and for my customers and for my clientele. You should be doing the same just for your area. Um, we were just talking about making sure everything's clean. Just make sure, even if it's clean. Sometimes everything can feel out of sorts for you, or you could avoid an area because there's too much clutter. Just take a time every month, every couple months to declutter, remove things that are just unnecessary or just sitting around collecting dust. Declutter the area. No matter how big or how small your studio is, I guarantee you there's clutter somewhere. Make sure that you can, as best as you can, declutter it. I know a big thing for me mentally, and when we're talking about decluttering, is cables. Cable management can be a huge part of that. Of course, we'll do a video on that here in the future, but just making sure your cables are organized, tied down, everything's as clean and open as it can be and safe without, hoarding in, like, spiders will get stuck in, if you have a bundle of cables, they'll get up in there. You want to avoid all that. Make sure that everything is as organized as it could possibly be. The last thing I just want to talk about here is personal energy. And again, that sounds a little bit hippy dippy, and to be fair, it kind of is. But just make sure you're surrounding yourself with items and knickknacks and all those kind of things that are adding to your life, giving you positive memories, positive feelings when you see them, pushing you in the right direction. Don't keep things around that are going to drag you down. If there's a picture you have that reminds you of a bad time or things that went wrong, or if you have an instrument that's giving you bad memories or anything like that, get it out of there. Remove all those kind of things. And if you have things that you can look at and remind you that you want to try harder, or that really bring out the best in your personality because it's something that you look up to or like shows your ideals, those kind of things. For instance, I'll just share one of mine. On my desk, I keep little figurines of one of my favorite basketball players, Tim Duncan. And it's just a reminder to me that he was one of the most selfless basketball players of all time. He didn't care about being famous or being a big name. He just wanted to go out and support his teammates and help people grow around him to get to the ultimate goal, to reach the highest heights they could. And I find that incredibly admirable, and I keep it there to remind myself that it's not about me. It's not just about what I'm trying to do. You get nowhere just trying to do it by yourself, but building up others and showing them the best way to be themselves is how we all get to that top level together. So those kind of items, if you can just place them around you, keep them around, and make sure there's something feeding into your personal energy, can make a big difference. I know this wasn't about gear, and I know this wasn't about all those kind of things. We just want to talk about how to make the most of your space, and if you're taking time to focus on that, to take the time to organize the area around you and make sure it's best for your personality, your workflow, and what you're trying to accomplish, nothing else can really keep you down at that point. So a little thing, but a big thing. I really want to thank you guys again for taking the time to listen to us. We had a quick one today. We just want to make sure that if you did enjoy this, if this helped you at all, please give us a subscribe. Make sure you gave us a like. All those things really help us feed the algorithm, help us start building a community. We really appreciate it. And we'll see you right there on that next one. Bye.